Well, Trump's second impeachment trial is now officially concluded. He was once again acquitted, although this time it was a little more interesting. 7 Republicans joined with every Democrat in voting to convict after what was a compelling case made by the House impeachment managers and an embarrassing farce from Trump's lawyers. Public support for conviction was higher than it was last time around. Of course, the biggest takeaway is the sad state of the Republican Party. Trump literally and willfully put the lives of every single one of those senators in danger. Even if you don't actually give a shit about the country not descending into a hellhole of violent political mobs, at least have some self-respect. And yet, in spite of the man jeopardizing their lives with zero care or remorse, Republican senators voted to acquit. And let's keep in mind, too, it's not like Trump is some political dynamo anymore. He just cost the Republican Party the House, the Senate, and the presidency. He has tanked the approval rating of the Republican Party. He has rescued the Democratic Party from their deserved irrelevance. And yet, the GOP just can't do what they need to do to get rid of this guy in spite of what an absolute cancer he is. So the primary takeaway is the sad state of the Republican Party. But a secondary takeaway is the sad state of the Democratic Party. Now, they aren't quite so far gone as to just go along with a violent attempted insurrection, but it's pretty clear they cared more about the political messaging and the show than actually delivering results. What do I mean? Well, in my opinion, the only thing that actually mattered about this whole proceeding was the attempt to bar Trump from office. And I realize that is an extreme action, but I think it is entirely warranted and justified in this one narrow case, given how outrageous his actions really were. I don't care at all about some symbolic win. I don't care about giving the cable nets a few more weeks of sky-high ratings. I don't really even care about laying out for the American people a blow-by-blow of what happened. We saw it. We know. And in fact, polling before and after the trial shows that even though the House impeachment managers made a compelling case, no one's minds were actually changed. And if you only care about the substantive action of barring Trump from office, then impeachment was a decidedly inferior tactical choice, since it would require 17 Republicans to go along and allow them to use a process objection as cover rather than forcing a discussion on the merits. I don't think Republican legal arguments about impeaching a president once out of office are correct, but they're also not completely crazy. It gave them enough cover to avoid the real questions here. As I've argued from the beginning, if you only care about the substantive act of barring Trump from holding office, they should have gone all in on the 14th Amendment Section 3 option. So think about this. Democrats say that keeping Trump from ever holding office again is existential. That if he is allowed to return to the White House, the country may descend into fascism and authoritarianism. Yet they couldn't bother to get their own party on board in order to do what needed to be done. It proves they didn't really care about the outcome. They cared about the show and the messaging and the optics and have indeed failed to do what it takes to remove this particular threat. Impeachment might be over, but the political fallout from the January 6th insurrection is just beginning. Here's the latest. Nancy Pelosi has announced plans to create a 9/11-style commission to look into those riots. Here's what everybody involved gets out of the deal. So for Republicans like Lindsey Graham, who said he's in support, they get to pretend to be serious and courageous and have some sort of morality by backing the creation of commission when they did nothing but aid and abet the madness after the November election. Some said nothing, some actively went along with the Stop the Steal delusion, and some went so far as to contest the election results. Backing a meaningless commission is exactly the Washington move to let people signal virtue without actually having any of said virtue. But above all else, the national security state blob, which of course is in bed with Republicans, Democrats, and the media, they're going to get new excuses to spy on, harass, and imprison more American citizens. Immediately after the riots, Adam Schiff and other establishment Democrats, along with a bunch of former spooks and security state ghouls, they started beating the drums for new domestic terror laws if they don't already have enough tools, laws, or resources. A 9/11-style commission would put an official imprimatur on their constant expansionary desires and power grabs. Well, folks, I've found it. A story that perfectly encapsulates the horror show moment we are living through in America. You ready for this? Portland police guard dumpster face off with residents trying to get discarded food from Fred Meyer. Here are some of the details. Portland, like many parts of the country, has been hit with a winter storm that's caused many to lose power. As a result, Fred Meyer grocery store was apparently tossing thousands of items that were in danger of spoiling thanks to that loss of electricity. Somewhere around a dozen residents showed up at the dumpster trying to retrieve the food for themselves and also for the needy. Store manager called the police, and officers arrived on the scene to guard the dumpster and ensure that the food rot rather than being eaten by hungry citizens, leading to, of course, a truly dystopian situation. Think about all that went into making this moment. A climate crisis exacerbating extreme weather events, a mismanaged pandemic leading to mass unemployment, despair, desperation, a capitalist system that places profit margins above human dignity, a police state that preserves and protects that immoral system. Really, the entire country is based around the sacred principle of protecting the dumpster. This is a wealthy nation, more than enough riches to guarantee everyone the basics of human dignity: healthy food, shelter, healthcare. And yet, even though these things are abundantly available, an entire system has been erected to lock millions of Americans out of having access to them. Just consider this. New study found that 40% of all coronavirus deaths were preventable. Now, some of that was attributable to Trump's horrific handling of it, and some of it is attributable to the same reason U.S. mortality rates have deteriorated in comparison to every other developed country, and that is our horrific, profit-driven healthcare system. In Texas, right now, state of emergency has been declared. It would allow FEMA to give Medicare to any resident. Biden has the power to do the same for the entire nation, given that we continue to be struggling with the national emergency and the pandemic. But he won't. Why? Because more people need to die so that health insurers and all the other scoundrels in our healthcare system can keep making their billions. Or think about this. Nation's hotels are largely empty as people curtail travel due to the pandemic. Yet tenants have continued to face eviction and homeless encampments continue to swell in urban landscapes. On college campuses across the country, dorm rooms are completely empty this year as students attend class on Zoom. There is abundant housing stock, plenty sitting vacant. Yet the homeless and the housing insecure are left in the cold because you can't have undesirables decreasing real estate market values and eating into landlord profits. We have a land of plenty, and yet people are freezing to death. Our brothers and sisters are being evicted and tossed on the streets. Healthcare is being hoarded like it's a luxury good. And all of it, the fake scarcity and the enforced desperation, it's all a tool of coercion so that you have no choice but to spend your life working for scraps and begging Joe Manchin for a minimum wage hike. As Steinbeck wrote, "There's a crime here that goes beyond denunciation. There is a sorrow here that weeping cannot symbolize. There is a failure here that topples all our success."